Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you guys for joining the session. Wisconsin Literacy, Adult Basic Education, and Correction. So that's the ABE is for Adult Basic Education. And so the objective for this particular session is going to be to develop a broader understanding of the barriers and challenges our formerly incarcerated population may face when seeking employment upon reentry to our communities, and how our roles as professional educators may impact that experience and process. And you see here that I did bold the word our because they are very much so part of our community. And I'll talk a bit more about that later as to how that ties in. So as far as the agenda goes, we've already done our introduction, so you guys know a bit about who I am, but I'll kind of do a short rundown of that. Kind of who our students and slash participants are. I do call them students because I've been an educator for a while, and so most of you guys here are probably educators in some capacity. But who our students and participants are, what obstacles, barriers, and realities exist for finding meaningful employment once our participants are released from jail or prison. The when, some of the timing, and kind of what we can look at as far as what we can do in the future moving forward as program providers and educators, and then why. Our community, this is a community-focused topic. Sometimes it looks a bit different and it seems like it's not, but it really is a whole community topic. And then our how we do it. We'll look at how we can make a bigger impact and how we can actually apply ourselves a bit better as professionals to kind of tackle some of the issues and barriers that we'll discuss. So that's our agenda for this particular session here. So a bit about myself. I've held some leadership roles in adult basic education over the last, I would say, 14 years. That started off as a GED prep instructor. I've done a lot of work in adult literacy, adult basic education. I've worked in a couple of different prisons here in Wisconsin, several partnerships with community-based organizations, and one of the highlights after I got into adult corrections was being part of the Special Investigations Unit committee, where we kind of got together with other members of the community and served as sort of a resource base for those getting out of the prisons and jail systems. So that's been my career sort of in a nutshell as it relates to adults education. So our students come from a variety of backgrounds, varying educational backgrounds, usually adverse experiences. And that's why I kind of bracketed that there, because that's usually you guys know the numbers. I think Liz, you may have shared some numbers as far as what that looks like with our population. How many students inside the system read at a functional level, how many students have a GED or graduated from high school. The numbers are staggering. And so that is a direct reflection of how adverse their educational experiences have been. And then most of them have had that one defining moment that, to me, I believe firmly ties into that educational experience that I just mentioned, and that has landed them where they are now. All of them want positive change. I firmly believe that. In my experience that I've had working inside the prisons, I can definitely say I've never met one individual who didn't want better for themselves, who didn't want better for their families, or didn't want positive change or just to live a quality life. And something that I like to remind everyone of is that 85, maybe even over 80, a little bit over 85% of our participants will come home at some point. And so it's up to us to really decide what type of person do we want living next door to us once our participants release. Who do we want our neighbors to be? Who do we want our community members to be? And I did highlight here that when they come home, there's a certain level of nervousness, there's a certain level of anxiety and trepidation, fear that they bring with them. And so I think we're in a very unique position, and I'll talk a bit about our positioning as professionals a little bit here and later in the slides, but we're in a unique position to, I guess, subdue some of those feelings and some of those anxieties that our participants feel when they come home. And so that's the big question. The question behind the question is, what are we going to do? And what can we do better as professionals? So as for existing barriers and obstacles that exist inside of the institutions and outside of the institutions for our participants and our students, is housing. Something that I've seen over the years is that housing is not only scarce, especially in Dane County, but that it's not easily obtained by our participants once they come home, because there's a lot of barriers that would, so having a criminal record, as we already know, that presents a huge barrier for accessing housing. Transportation, one of the biggest barriers I've seen with transportation is not that, not obtaining a car or anything like that, but, as it relates to employment, many of the jobs that are available to our participants once they get home aren't on the bus line. And so that's something that, once again, as providers of services, we need to look further and deeper into as to how we can work with our community partners, work with our bus line, work with our bus company, work with our transportation companies, and even some of our employers on how to connect, kind of how to fill that gap. And oftentimes there are opportunities for employment, but if you can't get there, then that poses a whole different problem. And so, what can we do to fill that gap? I do know of a few specific community-based organizations that try their hardest to provide clothing for those who are just releasing back into the community. But I definitely feel we can do a better job at partnering with clothing companies, partnering with department stores, and just making sure that our participants have the clothing they need, to the appropriate clothing, whether it be work boots or a hard hat or even ties, shirt and ties. How can we do that? And so a lot of times that is the barrier in itself, not having the proper clothing. And so you get the job, you land the job, you just got home from prison or jail, but you just don't have that small piece. And so once again, it's an opportunity for us to step up to the plate as professionals to help out with that. Low literacy is another barrier. So what can we do to help out with the so many individuals who come home, or who have even just track back, spend the time, significant time, incarcerated, and never gain the literacy skills that they need? And so not only is this an issue out in the community, but this is an issue behind the walls as well. Why aren't our participants receiving literacy services behind the walls? And so once again, opportunity, and I'll talk about that. The digital divide. So there's reading literacy and phonics, but then also too, there's the computer literacy. I actually taught computer literacy at a institution, in a prison institution, in minimum security, and it was an amazing experience helping those individuals build up their tool belt and possess those and build up those skills that they can use immediately upon getting home, and use behind the walls too, because the whole process of re-entry starts behind the wall. And so there's issues not only that need to be, and barriers that need to be removed out in the community, but also too behind the wall, because it should all flow together. All those services should flow together and complement one another. Along with those barriers, along with those issues, something that I've really seen, I'm actually going to skip down. I think the educational advancement and tutoring services is pretty simple and self-explanatory. We just need more of it behind the walls and beyond the walls once they get, once our participants get out to the community. But I want to skip down to something that I've noticed within the recent years that hasn't been nearly as consistent and strong as it should be, and that's the continued healthcare, especially around mental health. Our participants, when they're incarcerated, get from what I understand, a good deal of healthcare and mental health attention. But can those participants still access that type of support once they get home? And I've seen it come to an abrupt stop once they're back in the community. And so that needs to follow them outside. from an educator standpoint, there's not much. I think there's not much we can do in terms of providing a service, but I definitely think that we can partner more with the healthcare services to start not only educating our community about the needs of these re-entering individuals, and then educating the individuals around what's available to them to access in the community those same healthcare benefits that they were getting when they were locked away. I've seen cases where someone really needed certain medications to help with their mental health, and they were getting it. But upon re-entry and upon coming right back into the community, they had no way to access those things. And of course, we can all imagine what would happen. Recidivism is pretty much kind of right there on the border, on the horizon, I should say, for anybody who just cannot access those things. And so that's something that we really need to pay attention to as professionals. And another barrier, that's one of the major barriers on this list here that I see. So I've spoken a little bit about what we can do as professionals and what our positions are. And so two quotes that I really like are opportunity in the middle. One is about opportunity. In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. Pretty straight to the point. That's Albert Einstein. We're facing, and our clients or our participants are facing many barriers, many obstacles. But in that, because of our positions, there's an opportunity for us to grow. There's an opportunity for us to rise to the occasion and provide a better quality of life, not only for our participants, but for all of us. Because once again, this is a community issue. It's not just a recently formerly incarcerated individuals issue. It's not just the south side of Madison issue. It's not just the west side of Dane County issue. This is a entire county, entire statewide issue, because once again, 85% of our participants at some point or higher will be home. And so it's up to us to really understand our role in this. And then privilege. So this flows right into our position as professionals, is that we are very privileged to be able to face these issues, be able to face these barriers and to troubleshoot them. So we're in very privileged positions. And so the quote that goes along with privilege is pressure is a privilege. There's a lot of pressure here. There's a lot of pressure on us right now to improve our county, improve our state, improve the existing reality of our students and participants. But in that pressure is a great privilege. It should really remind us of the seats that we sit in, the desk we sit behind, and the work that we have done and the work that we need to be doing in the future. So what are some of the needs in the classroom? So let's go back into the institutions. Let's go back into the jail. Let's go back into the prison. What do our students need? They need a culture that's conducive to learning. Management strategies that promote and respect success. So success needs to be the theme. Relationship building opportunities. Honesty around expectations with real world modeling. And so when I say real world modeling, I mean when we come into the institution, we're doing teaching, and we're mentors in a great way. So I would always make sure that I'm modeling timeliness. I was always modeling what dressing for success looked like. Is one thing to talk about it, but nothing to actually put that on display. I always maintain my formal register and the way that I spoke to the participants, my students. It was hardly ever casual, hardly ever relaxed. It was always formal, because those are the interactions that they'll need once they get out into the real world to be successful. My expectations were always clear. Expectations were always revisited every class period. And so it's no different than when our participants are on the job, on the expectations that we want from them on the job, or once they find employment. They need guidance, they need guidelines, clear understanding, clear expectations as to what they need to be doing, where they need to be, the timeliness, all those things bundled into one. We need to be putting that on display while we're in the institution. And so any educator inside a jail or a prison needs to be a walking model of what we expect our students to be. Our students need relevant and practical curriculum and lessons, things that they can use, not only that they can use when they get home, but that they can be practicing while they're still incarcerated, while they kind of maneuver. So usually classes, I know in my experience, my classes were 2 times a week. So for those other 3, they need to be practicing every day the curriculum that they're learning in class. And so when they get home, it's second nature and they know how to apply. And then educational employment plan. So there always needs to be an education and employment plan developed for success upon leaving the institution. I just think that's very important. And they, all of our participants should have it, whether you're at Dane County Jail or at another jail, or you're at the prison, a prison. We need committed, I think our participants need committed, willing, and resourceful professionals who are going to go out their way to make sure that our participants are connected, make sure that they're in the know, and making sure that they're informed. That's very, very important. So there's a high level of commitment that is required in order to do this work. And once again, we're in a very privileged position to be able to deliver that. We need positive role models. I spoke a bit about that. Mentorship opportunities. We're never too. I'm a firm believer that we're never too old for mentors. And you know, once our participants get out into the community, they still need, in fact, more than they did once they were incarcerated. They need hand holding. They need someone to guide them through. They need someone who's going to introduce them to key people in the community. Those are the opportunities that they need. And so we need to step up as professionals and provide that for these individuals. And then complementary and follow-up services. This ties back to the example I gave about the discontinued healthcare. We need services out in our community that complement what our participants were getting when they were incarcerated, whether that be healthcare, whether it's an educational service. So examples just like that are just things that we need to complement out in the community and build programs around now to help these individuals out. So as far as obtaining employment, I think that there needs to be the process to connect with employers needs to start way, before someone is released. And so I think, having employers come into, and I actually was able to see this happen at one institution where employers actually came into the institution and really start building those connections and really start building those relationships. And if nothing else, the participants knew what was available out in the community. I think that right there is probably one of the best ways to just begin that process of obtaining that employment once a person is released. So with the relationship building, having employers coming in is an amazing thing. Once someone is home and they've found employment, one way to keep that and maintain that is through that mentorship. And so you get training and you get all this good information about how to do these things in practice when you're incarcerated, but actually having ongoing training and ongoing coaching once you're home and you're working a job. So for example, someone who's recently gotten home, they land a job, they're working. I think it would be beautiful if once a week that individual attended sessions on coaching on how to interact with individuals on the job, how to dress for success, how to maintain that formal register that I mentioned earlier, and keeping that professionalism. How do you maintain that and how do you keep that job is by getting ongoing coaching. And so when our individuals don't get that ongoing coaching, what happens is they just get in the groove of just working and all the skills are lost. And coaching is beautiful for all of us. no matter how long we've been in our professions. And so those are things I think needs to happen in order to land employment and then maintain that employment. So here's the win. The win is now. I don't think there's a better time than now to really put our compassion and dedication on display and just kind of change the whole story of and change the reality of what it's like to be educated within the institution, and then what it's like to re-enter the community, finding employment, especially the whole idea that it's almost impossible to find a job when you get out of prison. We have to change that. The idea that it's almost impossible to maintain a job when you get out of a incarcerated situation. I think that's something that needs to be changed, and we need to change that now. So we have our work cut out for us as professionals. So the truth behind the numbers of educational attainment and employability, in my opinion, if you go and dig around, I should have provided this for you guys, but if you go and do some digging about the numbers around that, to me, it's criminal. It's beyond our harsh reality. And so, once again, this is an issue that focuses on all of us and impacts all of us. And so we have to make sure that what we're doing as far as educational attainment of the formerly incarcerated and the employability opportunities for the formerly incarcerated are no longer criminal, are no longer reprimandable, are more of an acceptable and just, I guess, situation. And so that's kind of where that is. But so this is the why. This is why I've done what I've done over the years, why I'm still committed to the cause, why we should all be committed to the cause, and doing positive things moving forward. One of my success stories that I could think back to, I want to share with you guys today. So that was someone who got out of the institution and has maintained employment since then. So they left the institution, was able to cross paths in the community. We sat down in my office. I was able to provide some mentorship and have been able to see that person honestly be successful and raise a family and do all those things. And so just to know that the classroom culture that I created there around success, and then that real life modeling, it went somewhere. And I think that's what we need. And so these are the stories that I think I would like to hear more of. I would like to see more of us inside the institutions doing the work, and then making sure that we are complementing what's going on inside the institutions in our community, so that we can have more stories like this, and healthier individuals can return home to make our community an even better place. So how can we impact our participants? So what I would like everybody to do, so this is kind of my challenge to you, is just to write down 2 or 3 things you would do in 2021 as a professional educator or service provider to help remove existing barriers to employment and educational attainment for those currently and formerly incarcerated. Jot it down, keep it, commit to it, work towards it, and then as you need, revisit it. Just to keep that fire lit, to keep that dedication to the cause there, and your commitment to the overarching mission that we're all on as professionals and educators across the state of Wisconsin. So that is my time. I appreciate you for listening. Here's my contact information. I would love to hear what you guys are doing in the community, what you have going on, and how well you've committed to those 2 or 3 things that you just jotted down there. So thank you.